Okay, so we are going to get started, and I want to thank everyone for being here this afternoon. Good afternoon. I appreciate that you're here, and I appreciate your patience. We know Hamiltonians are looking for and deserve information coming out of yesterday's very important conversation at our General Issues Committee. The report shared yesterday provided information related to the criminal cyber attack that the city had to deal with. And that's what it was. And I think it's really important to be clear about that. Our city was attacked by criminals and extensive damage was done. And now we're recouping, we're trying to recoup, and we're trying to rebuild, and we're having some success, which we'll talk about a little bit more shortly. But we want to recoup and rebuild stronger. The report outlines the progress that we're making in that recovery and rebuild. And I want to take this time now, very importantly, to say how much I appreciate our city staff. Uh, they are so dedicated. They have been working tirelessly to restore our services. Many city staff continue to work 7 days a week, and that's not easy. The long hours they're putting in is pretty significant, and that's hard on them, and it's hard on their families. It hasn't been easy on anybody, nor has it been easy on Hamiltonians. So I am very, very grateful. I wanted to talk a little bit about yesterday's committee meeting and the information that was shared around the cost that the city has incurred thus far of $5 million related to the immediate response to the cybersecurity attack. This $5.7 million includes efforts to recover and restore our systems and third-party expert support in our response. It's a heck of a lot of money, $5.7 million. I get that, particularly at a time when we're all feeling the pinch. But the expenditures are necessary to help us safeguard our systems and make us even stronger against future threats. As we bring back systems, IT applications, and our services, the city has an opportunity to transform our technology and cybersecurity to better support residents and businesses and better protect us for years to come. And that ain't cheap either. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The past number of months have been challenging for many in our community, residents, businesses, and our 8,000 plus strong workforce. I recognize the difficulties that this situation continues to create and the frustration that it's caused. I want to assure Hamiltonians that I understand the inconvenience folks are dealing with. And I sincerely thank everyone again for their continued patience and understanding. City staff are doing their very best to rebuild as quickly and responsibly as possible. In 5 days, in fact, we're entering the 5th month of the city's efforts to respond to the cyber attack. And I want to say very clearly, it's far from over. So the reality is, even though our staff continue to work around the clock, the rebuild and full recovery will take some time. Just imagine for a minute if your home was completely destroyed, and how long and how hard, costly, and disruptive it will be to rebuild completely. Our city has been built up over 178 years. It's a complex, large organization, heavily reliant on technology. Meanwhile, we know that bad guys are still out there. Probably new bad guys coming into the space of cyber attacks every day. Frankly, there aren't many days that pass anymore where you don't hear news of a new a criminal cyber attack that's happening to a business or a public organization. It's happening every day now. Hamiltonians expect and deserve nothing less than the city leaving no stone unturned as we work hard to restore our systems. The city will advance and fast track the replacement or upgrade of select IT applications and initiate improvements over the coming weeks and months. This will help strengthen and protect us into the future. We're implementing the necessary upgrades that will better support residents and businesses. These upgrades will keep the city current and well positioned to provide a continuous level of high quality customer service. I continue to be extremely grateful for Hamiltonians' patience and understanding, as well as the hard work and support of city staff as we continue to navigate through this together. I want to guarantee you, we will come out of it stronger. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Marnie Cluckie, who has a few words to say, and then we'll take any questions that folks might have. Again, really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks, Mayor. And thank you for yours and Council's continued leadership through this challenging time for residents, community partners, and city staff. Good afternoon, everyone. Since February 25th, 2024, when the cybersecurity incident was first identified, our focus has been responding in a safe and secure manner as efficiently as possible. And as you know, soon after the onset, the city contained the incident and involved a team of cyber experts in the response, recovery, and rebuilding efforts. Through forensic analysis, the city has determined that there is no evidence that data or personal information has been compromised. I also want to reiterate that the city did not pay the ransom. The city has experienced a high level of operational impact due to the cyber incident, with most of its IT applications and IT systems affected by this attack. And throughout our ongoing response, the city has delivered the majority of core programs and services to the community, with more coming back online regularly, and when it is safe and secure to do so. Importantly, we have been able to restore many of the city's critical applications that serve the public, with a priority placed on health and safety. 45% have been restored to date. And some examples include the general inquiry email is working again, internet access is restored, and there's a temporary vendor payment solution in place to help expedite payments to vendors. We've taken a strategic approach to restoration and are making decisions based on best meeting the needs of our citizens, our businesses, and staff. Now, cyber attack is similar to other crises like floods, fires, or massive water main breaks because it disrupts normal operations, it causes damage, and it incurs significant costs. It also requires a swift and organized response. However, unlike natural disasters, a cyber attack is an intentional act by criminals who seek to steal information, disrupt services, or cause damage for their own gain. And these criminals are sophisticated and they continuously improve. We need to do the same as we rebuild. Yesterday's report highlighting where we're at now and identifying the next steps was an important step in our journey, a journey that is seeing us collectively move forward with a focus on resilience, on customer service, and building back stronger than ever. For the city of Hamilton, this building back means building resilience to protect against future cyber attacks and taking a customer-centric approach to improve our services as we rebuild. With our progress, the recovery team has also determined that a small number of our IT applications are regrettably unrecoverable. Of the roughly 200 IT applications managed by the city, 3% of the applications are not recoverable. And for those, mitigation strategies have been put in place. We are minimizing service disruptions by using manual processes as well as alternative technologies where they're needed. And our team of experts is continuing to work very diligently to progress through the next steps and identify the most effective solutions. As the mayor touched on, this is a large-scale effort to build back stronger than ever, and there is still a long road ahead. But we continue to make good progress to restore and protect our systems. We are mindful that this work comes at a cost and will be fiscally responsible while improving services for the public, both now and into the future. We appreciate that this has been a very challenging situation for many Hamiltonians and for city staff, and we really sincerely appreciate everyone's patience and understanding and apologize for any inconvenience. So thank you for being here. I'll now turn it over to the moderator to facilitate questions.
Thank you so much, Mayor Horwath and City Manager Cluckie. Also joining them today, we have Mike Zagaric, General Manager of Finance and Corporate Services, Cyrus Tarani, Chief Information Officer, and Paul Takala, Chief Librarian and CEO of Hamilton Public Library, available to answer your questions. We have members of the media, both in person and virtually, joining us. So we'll go for one question and one follow-up in order. I'm going to turn it over first to Matt Van Dongen at the Hamilton Spectator. Matt, please go ahead.
Thanks, folks, for having us. I read the report about the costs, and it refers to potential ways in which you would cover those costs in 2024. But I didn't see any reference to insurance. Are we not making an insurance claim to cover those costs?
So we have an insurance coverage policy, which is currently being reviewed, and we also have reserves and other mechanisms to cover this. So that information will come back at a future point when we have more information available for you.
So just to be clear, we haven't made a decision as to whether we would be able to file a claim to cover some of those costs?
So we would submit a claim, and then the insurer would review that claim and advise us.
And it's not covered by the report that you see in publicly.
Those are the costs up to May 28th, 2024, and we will commit to reporting on a regular basis, so costs are known as we progress.
Thank you so much. Adam Atkinson from CHCH, please go ahead.
So 5.7 so far. How much more do you expect to incur over the next few months trying to get everything up and running? And what was the initial ask from these criminals in the first place?
So the costs are not known to date. As we progress, we will report on that information. We know that there will be some significant costs associated with rebuilding stronger to protect and fortify our defenses, as well as replace some of the unrecoverables. So we will continue to report in on that.
Sorry, second half.
As for the ask from the cyber criminals, that's information that will be shared at a future date, but we want to protect sensitive information at this particular moment in time.
Can you touch on again how many city programs are up and running again, and how many aren't, like what percentage, and then how much longer will it take to get everything up and running?
Okay, I'll start and then I'll turn it over to our Chief Information Officer. So 45% of our applications, the IT applications, there are 228, they're up and running again. And then there are 60% of the critical applications that we have that are up and running. As for the length of time, it's a very complex system. I mean, the city is large, many servers, many systems in place, where we have over 500,000 residents. So we know that it will be months, not weeks. And we know that some of the key critical ones that are larger and have to be rebuilt will take longer than that. Cyrus, do you want to add to that?
I mean, one of the things that that is true is that there are lots of pieces that that we have to deal with, and some of those pieces, in terms of restoration and recovery or replacement, some of those pieces will be done, you know, in the next couple of months. Other pieces may take over a year. That's the work that we're doing right now to build back a system that's going to be much better, head and shoulders better than what we went into when the cyber attack took place.
Thank you so much. We now have a question from a virtual participant, Samantha Beatty from CBC Hamilton. I'm just going to enable the mic.
Yes, hello. What lessons do you have for other cities to prevent a ransomware attack from happening to them? What advice do you have, or what lessons have you learned?
Well, I mean, we're not through it yet, Samantha. Thank you for the question. We're not through it yet. So we're continuing to learn lessons, frankly, as we go through. But one of the things that that I think is clear is that, you know, we're one municipality out of 444 municipalities in Ontario. We know that other municipalities have been hit as well in different ways. But what we I think have an obligation to do to for our colleagues and with our colleagues, across the province and with the provincial government, frankly, is to provide some of those learnings. And as I said, right now we're in the throes of continuing to respond. The response is not over yet, but we certainly have a commitment to making sure that anything that we've learned and any advice that we have to give can be provided. And I've also talked to the Premier about that as well, and letting him know, offering up the fact that we're still a work in progress for certain, but that we are willing to to partner with the province to provide information that might help them and help other municipalities to fortify and strengthen and avoid this kind of situation.
So, do we get a follow-up question? No.
Yes, apparently you do. I see the nods in the background.
Okay. What is the status of city staff getting their pay or being able to access payroll information and pay stubs, et cetera, on, I guess, like their HR portal? We've heard that city staff in the long-term care homes, for example, are still having issues. So what's the latest with that?
I really appreciate the question. I'm going to turn it over to the city manager, but I want to say it was really hard on people. It still is hard on people, and I acknowledge and recognize that and feel very, very badly about it. I think there's some good news, and I'm going to hand it over to the city manager for that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll turn it over to our GM of Corporate Services, but just reiterate what the mayor has said, that this has been so difficult in so many ways, and we appreciate all that our staff have done. We know that the financial system was impacted significantly, and so we had to rebuild the system after beginning to pay manually. And so that has taken some time, and it's regrettable, and we are very apologetic for that. But I'm grateful that the system is now up and running, and GM Zagaric will give you details of how they manage that.
Thank you. First off, thank you, Madam Mayor, for your supportive comments to staff. And I'd like to reiterate what City Manager Cluckie stated is appreciate the patience of staff during the last number of weeks and months with respect to payroll. Happy to share that we returned to normal processing of payroll for wage employees last week as of June 14th. And we are returning to normal processing of pay for salary employees, on this Friday on June 21st. And so staff will now have access to information they didn't have access to previously, including payroll stubs, T4 slips, and so we're committed to ensure that we've reconciled all pay so that staff are paid accurately for the work that they performed since March 1st, leading up to June 7th. So again, happy to share we're back to regular processing of pay and doing all the necessary reconciliations for the past number of weeks and months.
Thank you for that information. We also have Tevia Morrow from the Hamilton Spectator joining us virtually. Tevia, please go ahead and ask your question. I'm just going to enable the mic.
Oh, hi. Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks for having us. I guess the question I'd like to ask is about what may have led to this. And I think that question was asked in a different way just now. But you've done the forensic analysis. You've been able to make corrections. And that sort of presupposes that you've identified things that were wrong. So is there any way that you can give us a sense of what may have allowed these threat actors to get in the first place? Understanding that's very complex and they're very sophisticated, there must be something that you can tell the public about what happened here.
Well, I'm going to hand that one over, I think, to Cyrus probably Tevye. Thank you for the question. But as I said earlier, and I think it's really important to acknowledge, this is happening on a daily basis to organizations of every kind, everywhere in the world, and it's getting worse, not better. And so that's why when we talk about the rebuild, we have to rebuild as strongly as we possibly can to be able to protect us into the future as much as we possibly can. And this is also why I was talking to the Premier about offering up any lessons that we learned. So I'm going to hand it over to Cyrus and let him walk you through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Cyrus Tranny, Acting Chief Information Officer for the City of Hamilton. I appreciate the question. I don't think it'll come as a surprise. We are not the only ones that are impacted by cyber incidents. I think general rule of thumb, and I know this isn't the answer you're looking for, is that from maintaining the security of our environments and going forward, we will not be releasing the information on the specific details at this point in time of how the threat actors were able to impact our systems. I think that's the standard protocol that you will see in many other cities that have been impacted, and companies. It's no different, I would say, than if burglars got into your house. You wouldn't put a sign on the front of your house explaining how they got in. We need to maintain the security of our systems. And the key component of that is making sure that we maintain good confidentiality about the controls we have in place, and as well as the enhancements that we've made to make sure we minimize any risks in the future going forward. Thank you.
Thanks. As a follow-up, I just want to ask about, there was an appendix that was, sorry, can you hear me, Mayor?
Yeah, sorry, it's really I'm putting my ear to the camera. I know that's
Okay.
awful. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, we can
so-
hear you. It's faint though. So and this is
Okay.
about the appendix information. So I'm going to bring Marnie to the screen. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you, Mayor.
Hi, City Manager. The question
Hi.
is, the appendix the other day that was provided publicly listed different applications that were affected, and some of them had the status of unrecoverable. So we just like a little more information about what that really means. So the first, let's use the example of building permits. Unrecoverable. Does that mean there's a list of past reports, status reports, maybe of potential, building permit files that staff have compiled, the status of whoever's building permit application and construction project? Are those lists not available? Were they locked out? Were they disappeared? That's the question I'm asking. What unrecoverable means.
Thanks for your question. So depending on the item in the appendix, it could be the application itself, or it could be the data within it. In the case of the building and licensing pieces, it's the system itself. So there is some data that still remains, and there is information for the application itself is not. So we will be implementing a new a new system, not a new process, although we will be revamping our processes as well so that it's a more seamless experience. So the application has to be rebuilt, and we will do so. We will do so stronger and better, but that will take time. Now, in the interim, you'll note in the appendix as well, it also notes some mitigation. So right now we have pivoted to manual processes so that we can continue to give applications. It is a little delayed, and we appreciate people's patience during that time and while we rebuild that system.
Thanks. Is there an example that you could give, maybe on the building permit side? I'm just picking one where staff have had to deal directly with the public, how this has affected their workflow and what needs to be done for customers.
Certainly, and I'm happy to give you a couple of examples. In the case of the permit applications and licensing, it has required that in some circumstances, people have to resubmit manually. So they can bring it in person, or in certain circumstances, they have been able to submit it digitally. And we're in the process of bringing online a system so those large files can be submitted digitally still, as people are accustomed to. And so and I've said this before, we're going a little old school right now. So we're pivoting to manual processes like you would have seen before the technology was in place. And during that time frame, we are seeking to rebuild those systems stronger. Another example I'll give you is the financial system has been impacted. So in order to make sure that we can make timely vendor payments, we have put up a temporary solution through a solution is called Pluto. And people can now submit their invoices and get paid through that system. And that helps us to expedite the payments while we rebuild stronger with the original system.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, City Manager Cluckie. We have a few more minutes, so we're going to go around, give our media partners one more question each. We'll go back to Matt Van Dongen from the Hamilton Spectator.
Two-part clarifying question then. In the report, in the Deloitte section of the report, it seemed to suggest that we became aware of the hack, if you will, within 20 days. So does that mean that essentially there was hackers had gained access to the system about 20 days before everyone noticed, so to speak? And my understanding correct?
Yeah, so typically as per the Deloitte report, there's a dwell period of time where threat actors are present in systems before they are trying to look at how they can maximize their impact. In our case, it was around 20 days before we were able to identify that impact in our system. And then as follow-up to the Deloitte report that was also included, we acted really quickly to isolate our systems to minimize any additional damage once we became aware that the threat actors were in our system to mitigate any additional damage that they could cause once they were in.
Right. So then the other part of my question would be then, just a layperson might look at that and say, well, geez, hackers had some sort of into the system for 3 weeks before we found out. So how can we guarantee that our information was not compromised?
Yeah, we used a third-party forensic firm who comes in and does detailed analysis. So I think the analogy would be is that you knock on the door, they're doing some investigatory work around understanding maybe what the systems look like, and through the third-party forensic analysis that was done, they look at our logs, they look at data records, they look at firewall rules, and they do a complete thorough analysis to identify, do they see signs and actually can forensically trace the activities of the threat actors to identify exactly what they were doing in our systems and what that entailed. And in this case, the analogy would be as if you think you have a lock on a safe. In our case, they removed the combination lock. So everything inside perfectly intact, not touched. Nothing that shows data having been exfiltrated from the system or actual data in our systems accessed, more reconnaissance, and then changing the lock, which prevented us from accessing some of our information, but not actually going into the safe to look at any of the information. That's an analogy I would give. I hope that kind of helps to better understand that.
Thank you very much. Adam Atkinson, go ahead.
Knowing what you know now after all this time, is there anything you would have done differently when learning of a hack?
You again.
Yeah, I think there's always lessons learned to be taken. And from our lens, it's really about making sure we have the depth of defense of tools. We're dealing with complicated threat actors. Again, whether you've been watching the news on a daily basis, there seems to be a reoccurrence. Yourselves personally, you're getting text messages, you're getting emails of people always trying to figure out vulnerabilities. And for us, I think it's just looking at the entire cyber program that we have, working with our cyber experts. We've done a lot of work in a lot of short time to make sure we have third-party experts reviewing and ensuring that we have the defenses in place. And now it's going to be about some additional investment to make sure some of those more advanced tools that maybe weren't part of our toolkit, we can expand to include those with a focus on rapid detection going forward, and just making sure that our perimeters and our internal security controls are at standards and continue to evolve to be ahead of the ever-evolving state that we see these cyber criminals maturing at their own rates as well.
What police organizations have been working with on this, and where does that stand now?
Thank you for the question. So we've been working with the Hamilton Police Force, and they correspond with any other police organizations that are required, and it still is an active investigation. So,
But they have no idea who did this.
so I can't speak to the details of that because it is an ongoing investigation, but I have every faith in our police force that they are investigating appropriately.
Thank you for the question. Samantha Beatty from CBC, if you have another follow-up question, please go ahead.
Yeah, I saw on the list of kind of permanently impacted services that the firefighter department paging and alert system is kind of gone, but it's how they're doing it manually isn't sustainable. Would you be able to provide some more details on what exactly that system is and what the city's doing to address the issues if it's not sustainable, like what the timeline will be?
Certainly, I'll start and then I'll turn it over to our Chief Information Officer. So in that case, it relates to their information, their record keeping. And so I'll let Cyrus come up. Thanks.
Thanks. I think I caught most of that question. So quickly the fire department moved to manual processes. Again, we operated fire departments prior to computers and we reverted to some of those. We have then put in temporary solutions for them, working closely with them to ensure they have the proper procedures and document record procedures. And in this case, that solution was already on the roadmap for replacement. So the fire department is working diligently on an expedited technology roadmap adoption and are very close to deciding on how they will be proceeding with new technology to replace the technology that they've lost while still maintaining access to critical services through a combination of manual and interim solutions that we put in place to provide them to enable them to deliver the services that our citizens expect.
Sorry, that's for both the record keeping and the paging and alert system?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that that's for both the record keeping line and the paging and alert system?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Samantha. Tavia Morrow, if you have a follow-up question, please go ahead.
Thanks. This is for Mayor Horwath or City Manager Marnie Cluckie. It doesn't matter. I just want to ask a little bit about the meeting with the Premier. Why are we bringing this up with the Premier? Do we want some money out of him or some help to deal with the situation?
No, in fact, it's interesting, Tavia, and thank you for that question. The cyber attack happened like very, very close, very close to when the Premier was in town to announce the Building Faster Fund. So this is our 120% accomplishment in terms of our housing pledge that we were able to make. And I think it was a $17 million check, if I'm not mistaken, that he was bringing to Hamilton. And we had that press conference, you might recall. And so I used that opportunity. So I wasn't having special meetings. I used that opportunity to put the bug in the Premier's ear that we were going through this issue, this challenge, and that at some point we should probably get together and talk about whether there are things that that we can share as a city with other municipalities and with the province, because as everyone has said in this press conference today so far, the criminals are getting more sophisticated and more types of businesses and municipalities and public services are being attacked or infiltrated. And so that's when I gave the offer to him. I said, this, when the time comes, which isn't now because we're still in the throes of it, I'm offering up the opportunity if you want to knock on our door and have the conversation about what we can do to help you as the province of Ontario to perhaps learn the lessons that will prepare other municipalities as well.
I see. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Horwath. That concludes today's media availability. I would like to thank all of our media partners who joined us today, both in person and virtually, as well as all of our city spokespeople. If members of the media have any follow-up questions, please feel free to email mediarelations@hamilton.ca, and we'll work to get you additional information as quickly as possible. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.